This podcast is hosted by Sheza Barbour, co-founder of Good Tree Institute, and joined by licensed therapist Archie Aquino and our resident scholar and founder, Dr. Nadia Qatranji.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Good Tree Institute's podcast, Timeless Conversation. Today is the last episode for Surah Yusuf. This is our last concluding episode for this surah. So there's a lot of takeaways. There's a lot to think about. I mean, it's been a journey, right, to go through this story, to go through the surah and learn from Yusuf's experience and his brothers and just all the ups and downs. But so we hope this is a powerful last episode as we conclude the surah. Dr. Nadia, do you want to just kick us off on this last ride?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So let's look at the last few ayahs that we have, which, as you said, Shaza, are it's the second conclusion, the second takeaway. That's what's so beautiful about the Quran, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after He mentions the story and He gives us the details of it, there is within that story, He gives you the nuggets there, just like, okay, what you need to get, and He makes comments. But at the end of the story, at the end of the surah, He gives you a final takeaway, a final conclusion. And that's in every surah. It's always there, right? That you can get that. And of course, except with the small surahs where you just like the conclusion goes within the group of the surahs. So here, we focused on the first part, which was the aspect of what happens to your iman, your connection and trust and faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how do you attain it, and what's the block from attaining it, and how does it fluctuate, and how can you maintain it? Now he's talking about something else. He's talking about another aspect which is extremely powerful and beautiful, and it also was demonstrated in the story. So let's see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He says, "Qul hadhihi sabili." Say, this is my way. This is my path. Who is he talking to? He's talking to the Prophet, peace be upon him. He says, "Say, Ya Muhammad, this is my path." Which this? This is what? What this? What do you think he's referring to when he says, this is my path?
I mean, it could mean for me a lot of things. Part of it, just when I'm thinking about, in context of the surah of Yusuf, it's the path of challenges, the path of struggle, the path of, there's a lot of learning and growth going on.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's as if he's referring to Yusuf's story. It's like, okay, well, my path is like his path. This is the path. It's the path of the prophets. This is my path. What's so beautiful is now he's going to actually. So now this statement, the starting statement, is basically the context of the last few ayahs. This is what's going to be about. It's going to be about the path of the prophets, peace be upon them. It's the path of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's the path of each and every prophet, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demonstrates it over and over and over. There is a overall categories or principles or facts about it that are just like the same with every story. It can change from time to time. It can change from according to what's going on in that particular time. But the main highlights are there all the time. Now, we want to see, okay, what are we going to benefit from this for ourselves? So let's first go through the ayahs and distinguish the nature of this path. We want to first know, like we're going to basically highlight as we go through the surah, through these ayahs, we're going to count these ones, and we'll pause and just like distinguish it. So in the first one over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, he's telling Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to say, "Ad'u ila Allah ala basira, ana wa man ittaba'ani." Ad'u ila Allah, I invite to Allah, I call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ala basira, with insight. So basar is to have that insight, to have that knowledge, that inner knowledge, right? From it comes the sense of sight, And when Allah talks about it, a lot of the times it's kind of like your inner seeing, not only just like that outer vision, it's the inner, the heart vision. He says, I'm very clear. I call to Allah with clarity. There's clarity in my vision. Ana, me, myself, وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي, and whoever follows me. So kind of included in this. So this is the first part. And then the second part, he says, وَسُبْحَانَ. We say glory be to Allah, but really subhana, which comes from sabaha, which is to float, and it also is a type of worship, which is the tasbih. But it's really, as our scholars mentioned it, is the tanzih. It's like tanzih la amma la yaliqu bihi, like you take away from Allah what does not belong to him, what does not befit him. A lot of times we humanize Allah. So subhanallah, like there's the absolute perfection that belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ, and I'm not among those who associate partners with Allah. Because if you recall, he talked about this immensely in the first part. So what do you get in this ayah about the nature of the path? In this ayah, he's mentioning two very particular parts, is that this path is very clear, right? He's saying it's ala basira. I have an insight. I'm clear on where I'm going with this, right? There's an insight to it. And then the other clarity that he has, the nature of this path, is when he says, I'm not among those who associate others with Allah. What's this? This is about more of like my connection with Allah is always being revived, and I'm clear that I always take out any shirk. Like I will not do shirk. I will not associate anyone with him. So these are kind of like cornerstones in the path. The fact that it's very clear, the fact of that this Allah's path is not ambiguous. We make it ambiguous. It's very straightforward. And the most important aspect in the straightforwardness in it is that it is actually that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't associate anybody with him. You're very clear that he's your core. He is your source, the only one.
Yeah, it reminds me of like, when we were discussing just in the previous episode, how we talked about what are the minor shirk, what are the minor associations that we need to clear ourselves out of. And here Allah is just bringing it back and saying, okay, if you have basira, if you have insight and you can clear out your minor associations, then we're on the path. Like this is what you got to do to get on.
Beautiful.
To consistently stay on the path. It's a work in progress that you're constantly doing.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's as if he's kind of like bringing back what he said in the beginning. Are you going to say anything?
It's important that like he's pointing out this is maybe the first thing you have to do to be on the path. Like you have to have this clarity about not having the subtle shirk that we are not aware of sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, subhanAllah. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, notice, and that's why I love what you guys are saying in terms of like, and what you said, Archie, this is the first thing you have to do. Sometimes when we come, being Muslim or born into Islam or, just like engaged in the practices of Islam, we overlook this aspect. We don't give it its due importance. And he's starting by like, are you clear? Are you clear about the scene? Are you clear about with what this is about? And are you really doing the work in terms of staying with this? These are fundamental aspects in our deen. And you cannot do them sporadically, just sprinkles here and there. This is something that has to be established. This is the path of the prophets. All right. Anything you guys want to add to this before we move on? All right, so then he says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ إِلَّا رِجَالًا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِمْ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْقُرَى. And we did not send before you except men. We revealed to them from the people of the town. So basically they were from the same people. They were, as we always say, this is important, right? Like they are actually the men who were sent, the messengers who were sent from the people. Anything like you that we always address in terms of this particular aspect is that it's important to be knowing like you're part of the group. It's not like you're coming as an alien to them. You're just like part of them, right? You understand who their struggles and their culture and you're part of them, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of saying that the people who were prophets, they weren't like superhuman. They were just regular people.
Men. They were just men. They were regular people. And then he says, look at this. This is another aspect that we want to extract as a nature of the path. أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. So he's talking to us, or the people who the Quran was revealed to at that point, and then later on to us. Didn't they walk around and travel in the earth? فَيَنْظُرُوا. They would look and reflect. Nadara is when you look, but you look with a kind of like you reflect and contemplate. Wouldn't they just go and reflect and look? كيف كان عاقبة الذين من قبلهم? How was the end result? How was the outcome of those who were before them? What happened? وَلَدَارُ الْآخِرِ. Go ahead.
So these are people who thought about the stuff that has happened before their time. They didn't just like start doing prophet things because they think they're a prophet. No, they studied what happened in the world. They studied history. They were thinkers.
Yeah, and then this is kind of like, asking us. That's again the nature of the path is that you go back and you reflect. Just go. I mean, this is really an invitation to study, to, as you said, to go extract the pattern. If you study history, it's insane not to study history, honestly, because that's where you can see it's, again, as we said, principles are the same as we go throughout life, and they're happening over and over and over, and you just have to extract the pattern. And Allah is inviting us. He says, guys, like, look, it's just the same. It would be insane not to learn from people's mistakes and from people's successes. And as if he's saying towards the end of the surah, the ayah over, he says, وَلَدَارُ الْآخِرَةِ خَيْرٌ. And the home, or the home of the latter life, the last life, is better for those who are cautious and aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Don't you just see and reason? Look at it. Just go and examine and see.
Teachers, and when you get to like grad school, they always tell you like you have to research stuff before you think you can do any new information. You have to see what happened before. And I had high school teachers tell me, think, don't just memorize things, think. And that's what it seems like he's saying here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, for us, it's like, as well as it's like it's so obvious, but we don't do it. It's like, look, you have ruins of civilizations all around you, and yet you just blindly walk past them as if like, oh, they're just some, ruins. Oh, that was nice, but you're not really gaining the benefit of, well, what happened to them? Where did they go wrong? Or where did things go right? And just analyzing the lessons, and instead of just being so blind and not wanting to, like, there's an element of also accountability of people just purposely being blind. Like, I don't want to know. I don't want to see. I just want to live my life, blah, blah, blah. And it's like at the end of this ayah, it's like, are you just not going to use your mind? Like, come on. Like, just questioning what is the purpose of your existence if you're not going to use what I gave you, your intellect, your mind, your basira, your eyes, like all these things to learn. And it's a lesson to just, this is the way to make our lives easier and better and more meaningful, and, understand the purpose of it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and go ahead, Arshad.
I just love that it's, I always love finding in Islam that God, Allah, is always saying to think. Because in a lot of other religions you study, it's like, don't think, just follow blindly. Just do blind obedience. And that's supposed to be your iman. But no, he's saying like, no, have faith, but think about what's going on. at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and extracting patterns is so important. I feel, to me, I honestly, even in my adult life, one of the biggest things, like for instance, being a mom, right? And you're just like you're thrown into this being a mom without even learning anything about it. So I really, what I just like, I start observing people around me and asking questions and learning like what worked. There are aspects in where I grew up in my culture that works. There are aspects that didn't work. Well, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out something else, and I just like start observing different cultures and different ways of seeing things. Okay, this actually leads to an unfavorable outcome. This behavior or this type of parenting leads to this outcome. It's always good to benefit. This is as I say, the smart people. I'm forgetting that aspect of it. The smart people learn from their mistakes. The wise people learn from other people's mistakes. And this is what Allah is asking us, like, go and see, don't repeat their mistake. That's why he just put so many stories in the Quran, just like, please get this. You're doing this. If you do the same thing, you're going to get the same outcome. Yeah. That's the nature of the path.
He knows the human nature is always to be like, that's other people. I'm special. That won't happen.
Right? Subhanallah, absolutely. So if you really want to, you're adding to your pool of knowledge and of wisdom and of experience from other people if you just listen and watch and observe. Big part that actually helps us. And then so that's the third aspect. We got 3 so far. You really need to be open and look and distinguish patterns. That's the nature of the path. And then he goes, this is the one that you guys were referring to, حَتَّى إِذَا اسْتَيْأَسَ الرُّسُلُ, until the rusul, the messengers, istayasa comes from the word ya'isa, which is to be in despair. Istayasa, when you add the alif sin ta, it's kind of like you're seeking it. Like they're not in despair yet, because you won't have despair if you're with Allah, but you're close. You're kind of like, okay, that's it. I'm giving up. I'm almost there. They're reaching to get to the yes, to the despair. That's the point. So basically what's happening is I tried everything. We did everything. And it's just like there's no response. They're not getting it. They're not responding. We're hitting a wall. No matter how much we try, it's coming back to that over and over and over. Allah is saying, until you reach that point where you feel it's closed, there's no opening. وَظَنُّوا أَنَّهُمْ قَدْ كُذِبُوا وَظَنُّوا, the word ظَنْ actually can be also meaning more of not only thought, but actually they were almost certain. It kind of like has also the aspect of you're almost so close that that's it. أَنَّهُمْ قَدْ كُذِبُوا, that they are certainly have been denied or were denied. They're not, nobody is responding to them. That's it. I can't do anything. At that point, جَاءَهُمْ نَصْرُنَا. Our help came to them. That's the point when it comes. As if, again, that's another fact. You gotta reach that point of despair, almost despair, almost thinking that there's no opening. That's when the Nasr comes. فَنُجِّيَ مَن نَشَاءُ, so we save who we willed. And then وَلَا يُرَدُّ بَأْسُنَا, and our punishment is not going to be repelled from the people who were having criminal acts, all of those who were oppressive and criminals and all of that. So there's something huge over here. Again, that's a nature of the path.
Yeah, I like what it is too, and it's like you have to do your best. You have to exhaust everything that you think is what you can do, and that is very empowering, because some people who think they have strong faith, I hear them and they're like, they just make dua for everything. And are you really doing anything to make that happen? Are you really trying to help yourself? And some people, they just think that they treat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like the genie in the bottle, and it's like, no, you have to do something. You have to make effort. And here he's saying, only when you've exhausted all your efforts, then
Exactly.
I'll step in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as if, yeah, you might have just like, yeah, you might have done some, you just maybe did 50%, but there's another 50 that you haven't tackled. You haven't even explored.
Yeah. And I mean, it's almost like you have to hit, I don't want to say like rock bottom, but that's what it feels like. I mean, for those of us that have been through experiences that you've been tested so hard and you're looking for openings and avenues and things like that, you really feel like you hit rock bottom, trying to
Yeah.
find all the different ways and things to create that opening. And then, but you just got to keep going. It's just this
Yeah.
relentless, like you cannot give up. And there's also an element you just can't give up on hope. And I know we've talked about this, and I don't know if it's been, I know we talk about this at Seeds of Wisdom and our retreats, but I'm not sure if we talked about this in this sort of, but the element
Who's
of
Yaqub?
like,
Yeah.
you cannot give up on the hope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answering you, providing that opening, creating the opening for you. But, you got to do the work too until that opening is meant to happen.
So the question that comes then is, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do that? Like, why would he make it in a way where, you didn't do enough? Like, it's not, why would he make it? It seems hard and difficult and very challenging, throwing stuff at us over and over and over until it comes. Why? Why does he do that?
It makes me think about when there's a really good teacher or parent and they're trying to develop their child or student, and it's not about making it easy. It's about learning the person learning how to exceed their own abilities. Like they have to reach that point before they can grow. This is about growth and developing it.
Yeah.
Maybe he's trying to develop us as individuals or develop us as a species. I don't know, but it's like we have to keep pushing to become something better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to say that in this process, you're learning about yourself. Like I can say those times when I have been tested to the T, like I'm like at that point of despair, and I keep trying things, and what I learned was there's things about myself that I needed to cleanse. Whether it was, what is my attachment? What is my ego? Like just being like, okay, my ego is talking here. There's still one little aspect that needs to be cleansed. One more, And in this process, you're also learning about yourself. Like, what is it that you are not willing to tackle? About yourself. You're not willing to recognize that you might have these attachments or, shirk, like the dependencies on other things other than Allah. And when you're in that crunch, when you've tried all the external options, right? Because you're always like, it's that over there and there and there. It's not me. It's all these other things. And then you're forced to deal with yourself and really like, oh, well, what am I doing wrong? Or what's wrong here? Then you start really learning about yourself and cleansing and doing the internal work that needs to, I think, happen. That's part of the process for the opening to actually happen is really doing that internal work, besides just all the knocking on the doors to create that the external opening. I don't know if that makes sense, but
absolutely. I mean, if that's how you own the victory, that's how it becomes yours. Because if you just get it on a silver platter, it's like you have no connection to it. It's not valuable. But when you really do everything until the opening happens, that becomes very precious. And it's just like, the feeling of like that state as an aspect, like that close to despair, when you feel stuck, you feel that it becomes now a pattern for me when I'm just like, when I hit that wall and it's just like, I know that's what you're talking about, Shazan. Okay, there we go. Now the stuck means there's an opening that's waiting to happen. I just have to be willing to be real, as you said, be willing to see where am I causing that stuckness. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wants you to be at your best version of yourself and wants you to grow in a way where you're actually matching this and to go beyond what your survival mechanisms have given you, because they can take you only so much. And so it kind of like becomes that, how they call it hurts so good. It's like that for me. It's like that pit in my stomach when I know this is what's going to come right now. It just go, okay, let's do it. Rather, because there's nothing that's going to get you unstuck unless if you really just be active and do the effort. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pairs it. And just to kind of why this is so relevant, this particular ayah is so relevant in the surah, because it basically highlights Yusuf alayhi salam's path and Yaqub alayhi salam's path. Both prophets, actually, this is a huge manifestation. He had to go through this over and over and over in every aspect of his life, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. And you just, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said again, he could have made it much simpler every single time, but he went like all the way. He could have just cleared the wife of the Aziz's lie right there and then without him going to prison. He could have done all of these kinds of things, but there is a growth that happened with Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam to be ready to receive, to do the role that he was meant to do. SubhanAllah. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with all, like, being born as a orphan, losing his mother, losing his father, being in need, all of these kinds of tons of struggles that he lived through. Even within the message, the resistance that he had, times where people would just kick him out of it. He was kicked out of Mecca. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have made it much easier. There is a wisdom in that. That's how we grow. Despite the fact we hate it, that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it. And there is a sweet side to it, subhanAllah. You go back, you look back, nobody wants it, but
I'm glad you said that.
It's what makes it beautiful.
Because I was beginning to feel like, am I the only one who, when this stuff happens, I'm like, I don't want to grow anymore. I'm tired of growing.
Yeah, all right. I know.
I've grown
Can I
enough.
just stay the way I am?
And believe me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows you and me more than we know ourselves. He is going to, that's why he says he does not give you more than what you can take. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. When you're ready for the next one, that's when he puts it. If we're not ready, he withholds it for us. He's not going to put on our plate. He's our Rabb. That's what the word of Rabb means, right? He restores. He nourishes. Subhanallah. That's why just kind of like being with him and trusting him and leaning on him is what's going to make our life work. Let's put it this way.
I'm like, oh, great, more growth.
Well, or like, I feel like there's times in my life where I was like, things were calm. You're like coasting for a year or two or a couple, and then you're like,
Yeah,
something's going to happen. Allah's going to test me. It's coming because it's been too easy.
yeah, subhanallah. All right, so we got the fourth point, which embedded in it the other point, which is basically that victory is always on the side of people who are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he even said, وَلَدَارُ الْآخِرَةِ. Remember, he said, it's always going to be, it's better for those who are conscious and aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala later on in the hereafter. And here they're going to be, they are going to be victorious. And now the last ayah wraps it up all together. Look at this. Look how beautiful this is. He says, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. So remember, he started by the surah. He started the surah by saying, we're giving you the best of stories. نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. Now he's ending it by saying, in their stories, the stories of the prophets, there was a ibrah. Ibra comes from abara, which is to pass and go through something. So after you go through the story and you see it, you want to make sure that you're taking, as you go through it, you take what you need from it. Just don't go pass through it. There is a lesson as you go through it. Naturally, you're going to learn something. But he said, you have to be somebody specific to be able to learn. Because a lot of times you might listen to the story and say, oh yeah, well, it's a nice story. I like it. It's good. And mashallah, Sayyidina Yusuf is amazing. Oh my God, the wife of Aziz. Oh my God, how can she be
drama.
like that? The brothers, oh dude, yeah. It's just like very clear, good or bad. But he's saying, if you are a person of ulil albab, uli are the people of albab. Albab comes from lub, it denotes persistency and firmness. We usually call the core of the fruit lub, lub bithamara, right? That's the one that has all the nutrients. It's full of nutrients, right? And it has the basically the persistency of the fruit. That's how we can keep regrowing it. And then it has also the purity and high quality, which you could sense right away, right? It's kind of like you have that core, which is as we said, embodied in the aspect where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the fruits, about when it's mentioned as the core of the fruit. So he's saying, if you have that essence in you, that persistency in you, that purity, you're letting it actually manifest in you. If you're a person who is like really deep and look at your gem inside, you're going to take a lesson from this. لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة لأولي الألباب. And then he says, ما كان حديثا يفترى. It was not a conversation, a talk that is just fabricated or invented. This is not made up. This is real stuff. This is a real story. And then he says, ولكن, however, it is تصديق الذي بين يديه. It's confirming what is between his hands. It's confirming what the Prophet has, which is the Quran, the path of Islam. He's saying these stories are actually just confirming what he's having. It's telling you that the pattern is the same as you go through life. وَتَفْصِيلَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. And it's giving you the detail of everything that you need to live a powerful life in this life and in the hereafter, to have a successful hereafter. وَهُدًى. So it has so far he mentioned two things. It's confirming the pattern. It's giving you the details of everything you need here. And then it's guidance. وَهُدًى. It's showing you the way. It's leading. It's giving you the anchor points throughout this pattern that you need to stick to. And look at the last beautiful one. وَرَحْمَةً. It's a mercy. وَرَحْمَةً. It's doing all of that with that love, mercy, compassion, and gentleness. That's what rahm is. لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. For the people who trust and believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So bottom line, again, goes back to that. You need to be somebody who is in that trust and belief. So just look how beautiful. This is what this is. It's creating the pattern. It's giving you the details of everything. And then it's also a guidance and it shows you the way and clears the way for you. And it's a mercy. It is a source of mercy for you. So what do you get out of this?
Yeah, Allah is telling us. I mean, in the last of the last, He's like, don't just think this is just reading, fictional reading, just to memorize a story. Like, use this information for your benefit. There's a reason why I'm telling you these stories.
And
yeah.
I mean, I personally love the fact that it ends with rahmah. That despite everything, what you think, that this is hard, this is that, like I'm struggling, that he's like, there's mercy in this. There is, I'm telling you, I'm promising you that there's a mercy in all of this. I'm giving you this mercy in the Quran and like all of this that I'm giving you. If you just pay attention, if you notice it, again, if you have that basira and that insight, you'll see the mercy, but it's there and it's not all horrible or hard, and I do feel that way. I do, like, I feel like even after you go through those really hard times and those tests in life and you reflect on it, you do feel that sense of relief and that mercy that comes with it. Even though when you're in the thick of it, yes, it's hard in the thick of it, but if you come through it, right? There's always like, the end of the tunnel. And then when you reflect, you're like, there's a relief there that Allah provides when you connect the dots.
Totally. And by the way, I mean, just to talk about challenges. It's not that, if you're not on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have no challenges. And that's not real. Everybody, every single human being, that's part of life. Life starts with a challenge. So it's up to you if you want to just do the challenge and suffer, or you want to do the challenge and have it be a ladder for you, a way for you to actually grow and come closer to Allah and really be connected. That challenge is happening regardless. But
I think it's how we're going to respond to the challenge is what he's emphasizing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because it can be an access for you, just like how it was for Yusuf alayhi salam, just like how it was for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and just like how it is for many of us here that we've seen around us, who basically take that challenge and use it as a way and as a mean to achieve what they need to achieve, and to have that core that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. Yeah. And I love the last aspect, which is the yu'minun. He's giving you access. Like, what's my access, Ya Rabbi, to get the guidance and to get the rahmah and to get all of that? He says, start by trusting. This path cannot happen without trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's where that's your first point.
So again, it goes back to got to work on your core belief, your core connection to Allah. Like, that's the ultimate, thing. And then everything else builds off and comes from that.
Totally.
Yeah. And he's saying kind of like, don't be the kind of person, because we mentioned this a bunch of times, who just takes the challenges and wallows in it and becomes passive and victimized and stuck. And he's saying, like, learn from your mistakes and keep going. I mean, that's the basic message of all of this, I think.
And the surah is done. Alhamdulillah. Congratulations.
Wow, subhanAllah. We finished the surah. But before...
I got a lot out of it.
I did too. I mean... I think, we definitely have questions we want to ask, our final questions, but before I ask the final questions to the audience of, things to reflect on, I kind of also want to ask, us here, like, what if there is one thing that you want to leave everyone with regards to Surah Yusuf and this whole journey we've been on, what would it be? Nadia, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's this ayah over here. It's the beginning of this ayah. Be a person of deep understanding and be a person who works on trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so you can benefit from the surah. This surah, I mean, if I were somebody who is putting curriculums, I would put this as a mandatory curriculum, part of a curriculum, to learn about you and learn how do you deal with your life, with your interaction with people, with things that are in front of you. We would love to all be, I would love to always say, oh yeah, well, I'm like Yusuf. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, yeah. And the brothers are those people who are around me. It's just like, it's exactly the same. And it's like, we love to be like that, but that's not the truth. If you don't really learn how to see yourself in each character and learn to benefit from each character, stop being an observer and just like judge the conditions, rather than this is just an example of who we are as human beings. It's talking about me. It's not talking about other people. It's talking about me, Nadia. This is the more I am willing to put myself in the character and in the story, in each ayah, the more I get out of it. That's what I would say. If you really just scrolled through it and just was an observer, go back and sit in the surah. Be the character and answer the questions.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Archie, how about you?
It's hard act to follow. Not as passionate as that, but I like that. I think people should learn to be inspired by the surah and use it to be inspired to find that trust in Allah and use that to be resilient and keep moving forward when they encounter obstacles, because life is always going to have obstacles.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting now that we can take a step back and reflect on it and just really remember that this surah, right, the story of Yusuf, it's really a whole life journey. Like Allah is walking us through a child going through all of his experiences of childhood, right? To become a young adult, to become a man, to then become a leader. And so you get this whole circle of life in this one surah, and there's so much to learn, in this one specific surah. Like in other stories that we have of the prophets of the Quran, you get like segments of their life, like certain stories. It's only like a portion of their life or a certain aspect of, a story within their life. But this, you get the whole childhood to adulthood to, and getting glimpses of Yaqub as as an elderly person and his. So it's fascinating to like see yourself in all these stages of life and what it is that you need to learn and glean from at all these different stages of life that you're going to go through. You're going to go through some of these challenges, So I mean, it's such a great surah to dig in and dive into, and I'm glad that we started off our first series with it. But so in conclusion, these are the final questions we're asking the audience to journal and reflect upon in relation to Surah Yusuf. So the first one is, let's really talk about your path. How far are you from the path described by the lives of the prophets in the Quran? Like, where do you think your path breaks off from this kind of path? And we're going to kind of present 4 options, like a multiple choice option, and just think, where do you land in any of these? So the first one, do you have clarity? Like the path of Allah is just very clear to you. Number 2, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala your core and your foundation that you're constantly connecting to? 3, are you learning from the past? Are you understanding the nature of life? Are you learning from your own story and other people's stories? And 4, did you commit to it, and accept it? Are you taking on the challenges that go with it? So there's that aspect. Where do you land in those 4? Then, are you clear that this path works? Have you seen it work in your life or other people's lives? Are you recognizing the recurring patterns, that challenges are all part of it? Think about that. And then the third thing is, if you are struggling to accept this kind of path, why? Like, why do you resist it? Which part are you not aligned with that you're resisting against? What aspect of it? So, I mean, these are questions, deep questions to end with, and just let it sink in and think about, and all of it is a learning process for you. It's peeling your own onion and your core and understanding yourself. Great journaling questions, and, this is all part of the story of Yusuf.
And if you allow me, Shaza, to add, to the 4 points that you're mentioning, you can have actually a breaking off in all of them simultaneously, because that was my case. I remember it was like, I had tons of questions and I was not clear. And definitely the aspect of kind of like having Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being your core was a huge challenge that I was just like trying to fit in and trying to do all of these kinds of things. So, and the challenge for sure, like I just don't want that. So, and the commitment, it takes something to say I'm in. So you can find yourself in all of them and just see what is it that's blocking you from taking it. That's the question that I had to ask myself. And I saw that I wasn't happy. I saw that I was not fulfilled. It's not that, although I had everything, it's not that I didn't have, what people say that it makes you happy. I was not. I wasn't content. So really just scale yourself against it and see where you're at and just observe. Right. Don't judge yourself. Don't make yourself wrong. Just know where you're at. It's very important to do that.
Absolutely. So this concludes the story of Surah Yusuf. This is our first series of the podcast for Good Tree Institute. We hope that you join us as in our next series, which we will be announcing in a short bit, and which surah we will be covering. But for the time being, thank you for joining us, and inshallah we'll see you at our next episode drops. Assalamu alaikum.
If you like listening to our conversation about the Quran, Imagine how much more you would get out of participating in a live conversation about the Quran with Dr. Nadia and a room full of people engaging with the Quran. Join us at our next in-person Seeds of Wisdom retreat, online with our weekly Quran and Me sessions, or for the youth at one of our Camp Z retreats.